While you might be bracing yourself for price hikes at the fuel pump, it could also mean you'll soon be paying more for basic food supplies. Global oil prices have increased as supplies have been cut in the wake of the drone attacks on facilities in Saudi Arabia on Saturday. Those attacks sabotaged about half of the country's production capability. New Zealand freight carriers are standing by for the impact and are warning that the cost of food and goods is likely to rise as fuel price increases start to bite. And as our reporter Tracy Neal discovered, fuel prices today varied by up to 33 cents a litre for unleaded 91.
The head of the organisation that represents the country's road transport operators is pulling no punches about what's in the wind. Nick Leggett of the Road Transport Forum says if the cost to transport goods goes up, so will the goods.
Well, I think the first issue is that an increase in running costs for road freight transport operators will mean that that's passed to customers, particularly of the magnitude that is forecast with the increase in our petrol prices.
Gull confirmed today that wholesale international refined fuel prices in Singapore rose overnight by around US $6.50 per barrel for petrol and $5.50 per barrel for diesel. Some commentators have warned prices in New Zealand could reach $3 a litre as the world reacts to the attack on Saudi oil facilities. But Energy Minister Megan Woods says it's unlikely. She says the general rule of thumb is that a $1 a barrel increase for oil results in a 1 cent increase at the pump.
Before we got to that point where we'd be getting to $3, actually the International Energy Agency's strategic reserves would probably be triggered so that we would have increased supply. And it's probably around a $20 a barrel rise that would see the trigger of the release of those reserves.
Megan Woods says the government is continuing to keep a close watch on the situation, but consumers are worried. Petrol prices in Havelock North ranged from $2.08 at Mobil to $2.17 at Z. Motorists filling up at Z Energy said the price rise overnight was a worry.
Yeah, I just noticed it. I don't get much for what I usually get. A lot of travelling, so yeah, it's a bit scary. I am concerned because it's a struggle for everyday living as it is.
Well, it affects all the consumable goods across the transport industry, so everything's going to go up eventually.
The Trucking Association's chief executive, Dave Boyce, says the increases are yet to hit the road freight industry, but are looming large. He says margins are already tight and the flow-on effects will mean consumers will pay more.
Like if you look at a typical truck, say a line haul truck, 30 to 40% of its running costs would be fuel. So if the freight was, let's say, hypothetically a loaf of bread, the freight was 50 cents of the total cost, it might mean that that loaf of bread goes up by 5 cents or something like that.
In Wellington's CBD this afternoon, RNZ found a 33-cent difference between the cost of 91 octane a litre at two petrol stations less than 2 kilometres apart. At Z Energy on Whitmore Street, 91 was $2.41 a litre compared to $2.08 just 2 kilometres up the road at a Waitomo station. Commuters are worried they're going to be hit hard by the expected fuel price hikes.
Yeah, it definitely will. I mean, I'm a full-time worker, I've got a child, I've got to drop him at school. If I don't have available petrol, that's at a cheap price and we're going to be a little bit stumped. Yeah.
It's a concern for everybody, really. Yeah. It's not very good, but you've got no other choice, you know.
I'm a builder, so everything we do, we're going to have to forward charge it to a client anyway. So it's just going to put the price up for everything.
But in Nelson, where today there was a 10-cent variation in the price of petrol within 2 kilometres, drivers are yet to see the full impact. And they're resigned to the fact there's little they can do.
No, what will be will be. Not a lot we can do about it, no point worrying.
According to the Americans, they got most of the oil, so we don't have to worry about it. Should have moved yesterday or something like that, but it hasn't. It's still on the same.
Not really. Whatever happens will happen. There's nothing we can do about it.
It was the same in Hamilton, where there was a large variation in prices within a short distance. Drivers were not happy but seemed resigned to the fact it was out of their control.
Well, it makes things unmanageable. Like, I've got 2 young children and, yeah, it just makes things harder.
Do you think the price is going to go much higher? What would that mean if it did go much higher for you, for instance?
I'll be walking.
What do high prices for petrol mean to you, for instance? Does it make a difference?
Makes it harder, yeah. It's going to go up and up and up, and it just really does make it harder to get about.
Dave Boyce says the cost of shifting primary produce to ports for export will also increase, which will make New Zealand less competitive with overseas markets. Consumer New Zealand says it doesn't yet know how big the impact will be. The organisation's head of research, Jessica Wilson, says there is always volatility in fuel prices, which is why the Commerce Commission is looking into it.
In our market, the prospect of rising prices makes the work the Commerce Commission is doing, trying to shed more light on this market, all the more important to make sure that domestic conditions aren't also skewing what we pay.
The Commission is looking into factors that may affect competition in the retail market for petrol and diesel in New Zealand. In Dunedin, petrol prices today differed by up to 20 cents. Motorists say they expect to feel a bit of a pinch, but it wouldn't stop them from jumping behind the wheel.
It'll have a really big impact on my business, so we travel a lot for that and use the car a lot for that.
Oh, it will just increase the cost to get to and from work, and even public transport. It might increase the bus fares.
I suppose I might get a bus, but that seems a bit unlikely.
And at least one Dunedin resident can see an upside.
In general, it's probably going to have a good effect because it'll drive down people's overall use of fossil fuel emissions. And if we're to tackle climate change, getting rid of fossil fuel emissions is our number one priority and something that all New Zealanders can do that's really meaningful.
Energy Minister Megan Woods says the international oil market is set up to try and insulate the global community from shocks in the price of oil. But conflict in an oil-producing area of the world is something all countries have to be prepared for. For Checkpoint, Tracy Neal.